Most of what Bassem Youssef says is false. Often it's so absurdly outlandish that it's hard to disprove concretely. Here are just a few examples of lies that can be easily debunked with a tiny, tiny bit of honesty and research.
Too.
Do you know
Pull it
why
up.
they increased?
Because they're having babies like crazy.
No. You see, this is how like when you watch data while being uninformed makes you look very stupid.
Tell me why. Tell me how the population has gone from 2 million to 5 million.
Yeah, because most of the 1.5 extra million didn't come from Gaza. They were pushed away from other parts of Israel. So most of these people, they have increased because of refugees being kicked out.
If you're talking about the settlers, those are tens of thousands.
I'm talking about
those
Gaza.
aren't millions of people.
Dude, listen.
Moving
My wife's
houses.
family is not from Gaza, and yet they found themselves in Gaza because they were sitting in other cities and villages outside Gaza. This is the systemic pushing of people from other parts of Israel, pushing them to Gaza.
That's not millions of people. This is why I said that you're
1.5
intellectually
million.
dishonest or intellectually lazy.
No.
That's not the cause of millions of people being moved. I'm familiar with the settler stuff and the disengagement in 2006.
You don't know what you're talking about. These are people that
millions
were
of
outside.
people.
What?
Okay.
The people who belong to Gaza are 700,000 people. Right now, Gaza is 2.2 million. That is not birth rate, my friend. You know what are behind the numbers? Because these are not people that gave in babies.
Okay.
These are people being pushed from other places in order to be part of the open air prison that it is.
Okay.
Here, Bassem tries to obscure a fact that is too convenient for his Israel is committing genocide narrative. The Palestinian population has grown a lot in recent years. Bassem lies, and he claims that this growth is due to refugees from Israel, not Palestinian birth rate. The claim that Gaza's population growth is from refugees as opposed to birth rate is ridiculous, and no serious self-respecting person would make that claim. The birth rate in Gaza is 27.5 births out of 1,000 population. That's in 2023. That is the 38th highest in the world. For context, the United States is 148th on that list. In Gaza, nearly half of Palestinians, 47.3%, are under 18, born in the 21st century. That's via NPR, by the way, in case you want to check that out. So line number 2.
Well, Arabs have been killing each other. First of all, the Arabs have been killing each other. These are called either proxy wars or civil wars. But this is different because America is not standing behind Saudi Arabia voting every single UN resolution like Israel. Israel is killing Palestinians and nobody can do anything for them in the UN or the Security Council. Right, you can talk about how Saudis are killing the Houthis or the Yemenis or how Iran, but when they go to the Security Council, America doesn't use the veto.
Bassem tries to explain why there must be a double standard when it comes to Israel, when Muslims have been killing fellow Muslims in the millions. He claims that the U.S. wasn't supporting Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen. That's false. Not only did the U.S. back Saudi Arabia's war with weapons and money, they did exactly what Youssef claims they didn't do. They vetoed the UN Security Council resolutions. And you can find that via CNN. Here's a headline in the description. The U.S. slams the brakes on UN Yemen ceasefire resolution. Line number 3.
You know how many vetoes did America use since the inception of the Security Council? How many?
Tell me.
88. How many of those were they used in order to protect Israel from a veto?
0.
56.
Oh.
The superpower of the world over 50 years used more than 65% of its veto power to protect one country.
Bassem tries to paint a false picture where the U.S. gives Israel a free pass at the UN. The U.S. gives Israel special privileges at the UN. That is 1,000% false. The only reason the U.S. keeps vetoing anti-Israel UN resolutions is because of the UN's infamous anti-Israel bias. For example, the United Nations General Assembly passed more resolutions critical of Israel than against all other nations combined in 2022. The General Assembly approved 15 anti-Israel resolutions versus 13 resolutions criticizing other countries, according to a tally by the pro-Israel monitoring group UN Watch. Russia was the focus of 6 resolutions condemning its invasion of Ukraine. North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, and the US were hit with one resolution each. Saudi Arabia, China, Lebanon, Turkey, Venezuela, Qatar, which have poor human rights records, were not dinged by a single resolution criticizing them. As of 2023, since 2015, the General Assembly has adopted 140 resolutions criticizing Israel. Over the same period, it has passed 68 resolutions against all other countries. This is what the UN Watch said. Lie number 4.
right? And the thing is, Hamas wasn't there since 1984. Hamas was created in 1987. Until 1987, Israel killed 100,000 Palestinians since 1948. It's not about the PLO, because Israel took Israel in 1948. The PLO was created in 1964. These are all a result of what Israel has been doing.
Bassem claims that the terrorism against Jews is Israel's fault, and it didn't begin until after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Say it with me, everybody. False. Arabs have been terrorizing and murdering Jews for a very, very long time. Here's just a few examples. During the 1929 Palestinian riots, 133 Jews were killed by Arabs, and 339 Jews were injured, most of whom were unarmed. 47 Jews were killed in riots in Jaffa in 1921, and most famously, 69 Jews were murdered brutally in the 1929 Hebron riots. Lie number 5.
Yes, they were treated badly in Europe. They were treated badly everywhere, and they were not treated badly in Spain, because that was under the Arab rules. Before the Spanish Inquisition, Jews lived in the courts as ministers and as poets and as scientists under the Arab rule in Andalusia.
Bassem makes the insane claim that while Jews suffered under Christian rule in Spain, they were treated well by the Muslims. This is nuts. Just look at the Rambam. The Rambam was born in Spain in the 12th century. When he was a child, the Islamic Almohads took over and gave the Jews a choice: convert to Islam or be killed. The Rambam's family were forced to leave Spain and wander for years. The claim about Jews serving as ministers is just plain stupid. Jews served as ministers to Christian kings as well. That didn't stop the Jews from being mistreated. Line number 6.
So all through these years, they were living peacefully, relatively under the Arab rule. And then what happened, the pogroms in Russia and Ukraine pushed them to England. And then England said, we cannot take them anymore, push them more to the Arabs. At the time, Jewish people in the Arab world, especially Egypt, were living. The first people who actually did the cinema and the theater were Jewish Egyptian people who lived there all their lives. Jews, Christians, and Muslims were living. Right now, the department store, like our version of Macy's and Target, they all have Jewish names because they have part of the fabric of the Egyptian society for decades, way before the Jews from Europe came.
Bassem repeats the outrageous lie that Jews lived well in Muslim countries until the State of Israel. Because the State of Israel being born, that's where everything went wrong, right? False. So false. Even in the best of times, Jews in Muslim countries were second-class citizens, even forced to pay a special tax for protection simply because they were Jews. Jews faced discrimination and violence across the Middle East. Let's just go back to the Rambam. As leader of the Jewish community in Muslim lands, the Rambam spent a tremendous amount of time helping and comforting Jews facing persecution across the Muslim-controlled Middle East. Bassem mentions Egypt. Well, the Rambam lived in Egypt, and in his famous letter to the Jews of Yemen regarding their persecution by Muslim rulers, he wrote, God has hurled us in the midst of this people, the Arabs, who have persecuted us severely and passed baneful and discriminatory legislation against us. And that, and I quote, never did a nation molest, degrade, debase, and hate us as much as they. Line number 7.
Sometimes people accuse Arabs, but we do not want the state of Israel. They say we don't want a state for Palestine. So you have this. As long as you think that this is your land only and those Palestinians are indispensable and they can go other places, you will never have peace.
Bassem tries to draw an equivalence between Islamic terrorism and Israel. The notion that Israel rejects a Palestinian state just like the Arabs reject Israel is crazy. Israel agreed to the establishment of a Palestinian state over and over again, while Israel has had to fight for its very existence since the day it was established. Israel agreed to the establishment of a Palestinian state with the 1937 Peel Commission partition plan. The Arabs said no. Israel agreed to the establishment of a Palestinian state with the 1948 UN partition plan. The Arabs said no. Later, in 1999, 2000, and then again in 2008, Israel offered to give up the West Bank for a Palestinian state, and the Arabs said no. In fact, Israel wanted so badly for the Palestinians to rule themselves and tired of Palestinian leadership's obstructionism that they unilaterally withdrew all Jews from Gaza in 2005, even using the IDF to expel Jews by force. That place used to be called the Gush Katif. Thousands of families lived there, and now it's a hotbed for terrorism because the Jews tried to make peace with the Arabs. But just in case you wanted to believe the things Bassem Youssef said, here's some facts that you yourself could find out with a little bit of research. The fact